Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when you're part of a team. Everything is awesome when we live.
You're listening to The Evan Sullivan Show.
Everything is better when we stick together.
Do you know that voice? That is Tegan and Sara. Tegan and Sara are a massive, massive band. I mean, they have had Juno Award-winning songs. They've had Grammy nominations. They've been at the Oscars. They have played with they've opened for Lady Gaga. I mean, Tegan and Sara, who have, these are identical twins, born in 1980. They play tons of instruments. They've, made 8 records. You name it. These guys have done literally everything. You could Google these guys, and you're going to find out that Katy Perry loves their music. Everybody loves their music because Tegan and Sara are phenomenal. But they're openly gay. They're political activists. They speak out. They raise money. Tegan and Sara are a force to be reckoned with, and they're about to be awarded the Governor General's Performing Arts Award, which is one of the highest honors in Canada. Very few people know about it, though. I mean, it really is awarded by the Governor General to the greatest artists in Canada. And, of course, I bet you've never heard of it. You heard of the Junos and the Grammys and the Oscars, but not that. So we wanted to speak to Sara Quin. That's one half of the Canadian band Tegan and Sara, and we reached Sara and Sara. A lot of people don't know about the Governor General's Fine Arts Award, but it's a huge honor. How does it feel to get it?
Absolutely. I mean, I sort of echo your sentiment that it's an honor, but I agree with you that it's not always something that is common knowledge. People don't necessarily know about it, but I think that makes sense because obviously not everyone is going to win it. I mean, you're not going to be bestowed this honor, so maybe you're not aware of it. But I know as a musician, it's sort of been loosely on my radar just because I've seen other artists that I'm familiar with win it, and I've always thought how amazing, how remarkable. I didn't necessarily think we would ever be.
So Canadian, right? Here's the highest honor. Here's the highest honor we have.
We've come a long way.
So Canadian, right, Sara? Here's the highest honor we have. You and other great artists will be nominated and given this incredible award by the Governor General, and no one's going to know about it. So there's Canada. We'll just keep it under a tree.
Okay, so it's very funny you say this because so many things that we do in our career, so many opportunities that have happened. I always think it's really interesting who responds. Like, when we did the Oscars, for example, I mean, that was pretty global. We got a lot of messages from friends and family. I mean, a lot of people recognize, what a sort of insane opportunity that was. But it's really interesting because this is one of those things that are, happening in our life where it's very specific people. Maybe I would even say like a certain demographic of people, a certain age group of people who are like, oh my goodness, well, congratulations for this Governor General's Award. And I'm feeling very mature. I'm feeling very,
right. Don't say old, Sara. Don't say old.
I only say mature. Mature.
No, it's true. No, but the truth is sometimes this is at the end of a career you get this, but you guys are the farthest thing from that. But it's true. Like you think, oh, people are freaked out. We're doing with Junos. We're doing Oscars. We're on stage with Taylor Swift and she thinks, we made her favorite album. And then it's like, well, wait a second. One of the most important things is the Governor General's Award. No one knows about it, but it's going to be very cool. So let me just ask you, I mean, your career's been, I mean, it is kind of crazy that you're already getting these kind of accolades. Do you feel when you talk to your sister, are we getting old? Are they like already saying it's done? Aren't we just kind of still starting here?
Tegan and I are very practical people. We're Virgos, and we always say that, we started our career with like a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan. The first thing I did when I made my first little profit from a tour was start an RSP. I mean, we're very practical.
I love that.
And I think, to some degree, a recognition like this sort of parallels with where we already feel like we're at in our own career. Like, I love the 20 years of, of the past, and I've enjoyed making albums and I've enjoyed touring. But we're sort of in a phase of our career right now where we're sort of reassessing what we want to do and what what we want to spend the next couple of decades working at, and what sort of legacy we might leave. And for us, it's started to pivot away from just thinking of ourselves as musicians and thinking of ourselves more as, sort of philanthropic vehicles, or creative artists who work in other mediums. We've really started to talk about those things. So this award comes at a really interesting time where we sort of feel like we are kind of marking, not an end, but, we are sort of marking a transition from where we've been to where we're hoping that we'll go next.
Well, I want to get to that because you guys you take on political issues, and as you say, you've done a lot of philanthropic work. But let me just get the practical side out of the way because, Sara Quin, you're practical. How's the RSP doing? Are you good? You're good? You can retire? You're cool?
Yeah, I feel
okay,
I feel
good.
pretty good.
You're feeling good. No, I just want to, I got to set you up. I know that you did that. That's so ridiculous that you did that, but I love it. Let's talk about... a lot of musicians stay in their lane. You know what I mean? I don't want to talk politics, even though in my view, political ideas have been integral to music, and music has been the soundtrack to the great political movements of our lives. One of the big issues for Tegan and Sara has been the LGBTQ movement. You've raised a lot of money. You've been on the forefront of a lot of these things. We've been talking about this on our program in the last couple of days. I want you to weigh in. Part of the Pride Parade in Toronto, they don't want the police there. No police, no uniforms. And it's been very divisive. Partly it has to do with the fact that there's frankly been an alleged serial killer in the gay community. But what's your take on that? That some see a division between the police and the LGBTQ community.
Well, I mean, it's definitely, thanks for making me wade into a really complicated issue.
It's my pleasure.
No, I think the truth is that it's an extremely complicated issue, and I think that's, you sort of touched on this. There are historical legacies. The police is just one of those institutions, but the LGBTQ community, and specifically, those in the community who maybe didn't hold power or who didn't have the same kind of status as, for example, white gay men. They have been sort of oppressed, and they have been, in some cases, experiencing violence or, profiling or abuse from institutions. And I think that it is fair that through the healing process and through the rebuilding process with our communities, we have to acknowledge those legacies, and we have to listen to the people in the community who have faced those atrocities and those discriminations. I think a lot of times when we think of the gay pride parades or some of the more popular movements like same-sex marriage, a lot of times what we're seeing is, people who want to assimilate into the broader community. We want to get married. We want to have a house. We want to have kids just like you. We're just like you, which sometimes can, I think, diminish the amazing and unique identities of those of us in the community. Some of us don't want those things, or some of us see those things as being oppressors, or we see them as being patriarchal, or whatever it is. So the community is broad, it's complicated, it's dynamic. There are lots of different, identity politics that are, that are guiding our broader movement. And so, where do I stand on the police side of it? I think if the conversation is happening in a respectful way and the police, understand where the community is coming from, this shouldn't have to be so divisive. Right.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It doesn't have to be. You can have your space without necessarily it being a wall.
It's the Evan Sullivan Show.
Well, they played with Taylor Swift. They've opened for Lady Gaga. They've opened for Katy Perry. They've been nominated for Grammys. They've won Junos. They've played at the Oscars. Yeah, I think they've done pretty well. Twin sisters from Alberta. Tegan and Sara. Sara Quin joins us, one half of the great Canadian band, Tegan and Sara. We're in the middle of a conversation. Many of you are weighing in. They're political. Sara's been open about being very political. Some of them are saying, I don't like her very much anymore because now I know her politics stay in your lane, but they don't stay in their lane. And let me pick up this conversation with Sara. They're known for their conversation. And I asked her, if, speaking of politics, do you feel as a musician right now it's important to step up, despite the fact people sometimes don't like it, and step up on issues?
I do. And I always sort of try to shape this as this is totally my opinion. And I grew up with parents who were extremely political, and they listened to political music. Just off the top of my head, I grew up listening to U2 and Sinead O'Connor, and a lot of these artists at that time in the 80s and early 90s were, a huge part of their platform was talking about the issues that were happening in their countries and the injustices that were meaningful to them.
Sure,
and I think there was, especially my mom, she really reinforced that it was important to stand for something. It was important to understand, what your privilege was, and it was important to sort of redistribute that back into the communities that were important to you and that were essential. And I think because as teenagers, we already had begun to identify as gay, it was important to us that we not hide that. And I think coming out in the late 90s, whether you were thinking it was political or not, it was a political statement.
It was very political. Was it hard to do that?
I think for us, it was just like, I couldn't even imagine I don't even know if I would say it was hard. It was easy for me to be exactly who I was, but we certainly faced a lot of homophobia and super,
right.
A spectrum of things. A lot of people were super offensive. Some people were just not educated around the matter. So then, you sort of get these people who are well-intentioned but are saying really insulting or upsetting things to you. I think that we have battled back almost 20 years of assumptions about us or stereotypes or these assumptions that we can only be one type of band or we can only be attracting one type of audience member or fan. So, it was difficult, but being myself is not difficult. I am who I am. I don't make apologies for the way that I identify. This is who I am. And it's as natural and as instinctive as, being straight. And so I think for us, being political has just meant being ourselves. And as we, now sort of, as you were saying, as we sort of enter into a newly highly political time, I think that it just gives us more opportunity to sort of zero in and be strategic about the issues that we care about and fundraise for the, communities that we think are crucial and need that extra support financially and otherwise. How I think that, how I think other artists should sort of approach this time. Everybody has their own thing. We
That's
always
right.
say to people, if it's not LGBTQ issues, then pick something. Just be involved in something. One of the things that I always say is that I feel sort of selfish. This isn't just me working with this community because I have to or because I think I'm supposed to. I love doing it. It gives me purpose. It gives me value. It makes me feel connected to something bigger than myself. And it also makes me feel like I want to keep doing it. I don't always feel like, I still want to be in the music industry. I'm like everyone. I always think about having a different job or trying something new. But supporting the community and working with the community that I'm a part of, it makes me want to continue. It makes me get up
and
every day.
I think the old idea is you got to pick a lane, which is stupid in my view. You can rock out, go to the concert, have a great time, but you don't have to choose, I'm going to be political or I'm going to be a great musician or, I don't think we have to segment these things. It is who you are. I love how you talk about that, Sara. And I'm speaking with Sara from Tegan and Sara. It is who you are. You're this today. It's not we're you're at work, you're at home. You are that person who can, rock it out in a concert and have a great time. And then you can be a political activist and follow your passion in whatever. And I really do think we're beyond the categories where you got to pick. And I think now I want to.
Sure. And also, too, I say this to my friends all the time who, this comes very natural to me. Like I said, I grew up in a political family. I'm also gay, so these things are pretty much in my wheelhouse. But one thing I am trying to support right now in our community, because the reality is that a lot of the people we tour with and are friends with and work with are straight and usually men and usually white. And just because you didn't, just because you sort of came into the world with this white privilege and with this sort of heterosexual privilege, doesn't mean that you can't empathize with the communities around you who are potentially struggling or who are trying to correct injustices.
Sarah, I'm going to stop you just for a second, because on our station, when people say white privilege, okay, it is a super hot button issue. Like the lines,
sure.
I'm telling you, people right now at our talk line at 71010 are going to be like, what does she mean by white privilege? I want to give you a shot at defining it, because it becomes a hugely polarizing issue. And I want to give you a shot of talking about that.
So, I could talk about this stuff all day long, but when I talk about it in reference to the music industry, what I mean is that you have the majority identity. There are sort of like no stereotypes or deficits that would stop you from achieving your dreams. You're not profiled or discriminated against or stereotyped in a way that would prevent you from getting grants or accessing a job or keeping a job or so for me there is the privilege that is inherent, especially in countries where the majority of people are white, that it's a thing that we have to acknowledge if we want to level the scales.
Okay, here's what I want to do, because I got a minute left with you. I gotta have you back. Like, we gotta just do the show. But I don't know what the hell you're doing. Do music. You should just be on radio. Okay, so here we go. I mean, you are on radio, but okay, Sarah, I got a minute, so I want to do 5 real quick questions. You're identical twins. You work together. You're phenomenal musicians. Which one of you is a better singer, Tegan or Sara?
Oh, my God. You're trying to break up my band. You're trying to ruin my reputation across Canada. This is a very difficult interview. I think we both have different strengths.
I agree.
We sing in really different ways.
Okay. Who is a more instinctive songwriter?
I think Tegan is. I think she can really just sit down and get right to the heart of the matter. She's really good at that.
Who's more practical?
I think I'm probably more practical. I think she's a little bit more impulsive.
You had an RRSP when you first made money. You have to be the... Oh, my God, Sarah. Of course you're the most practical. Who's funnier?
I don't know. I think I'm probably more... I think I'm a little bit more clever and sort of subtle with my humor. I think Tegan's a little more like slapstick funny.
Right. Do you guys crack each other up a lot still?
I think Tegan's entertaining, yeah.
I love it. Okay, just last thing. I know you're not making a record right now, but when you're wanting to do a record, do you say, "Hey, Tegan, I got the itch here," or because you're identical twins, is it some weird chemistry, the alchemy, where you both feel like, "Hey, do you feel it? I think we got to make a record." Do you? Yeah. Or is it sort of one of you tugs the other along?
It's always different. We both go through creative bursts. Like right now we're writing a book, and we're both really, really zeroed in on writing. And I think it's the flow of writing is really happening for us right now. So I'm not totally I'm not sitting down to write music very much, because I sort of have my brain kind of like laser focused on these stories that we're telling. But when music, it always sort of makes sense. Like when we're ready to make an album, usually it's somewhere in the flow. I've got some songs, Tegan's got some songs, and we'll sort of come together, and the energy will sort of build, and then we'll get this momentum, and we'll sort of be able to set an end goal. But right now, it's not music really. It's this other creative project.
You know what? You have been an absolute pleasure to talk to. You're phenomenal. Tegan and Sara, love the band. You and your sister have been making brilliant, brilliant music for a long time, but you deserve all the accolades. You've made a great contribution to the country, to the world. You're songwriters, you're writers, you're activists. I love it, and it's just an absolute thrill and an honor to have you on the program, Sara. Thanks so much, and enjoy the Performing Arts Award, which is so well-deserved, Sara.
Oh, it's been such a pleasure, and thank you to you and to your listeners. I love being able to just talk about all these different topics that are so important, it makes me extremely proud to be Canadian. Not just this award, but just to come back to Canada and have this history and to be able to talk about our experiences so openly it's really an honor. Thank you.
You're the best, man. Thanks, Sara.